Okay, so I lost $100,000 and I pretty much lost it all. Hey everyone, Tarek Backus here with Whole Net Worth, and in today's video, I'm going to share with you a financial struggle that I'm dealing with right now and how it's affecting me emotionally and mentally, and what tools I'm using and learning to try and overcome this challenge in my life. And the reason why I'm sharing it is I think, or I'm hoping that if somebody else is looking at this and they're going through something similar, that it may help them along their journey. I've dealt with financial loss in the past. I dealt with 2 floods on one property in a matter of 2 years, and that was about a $20,000 hit, and that was difficult to deal with at that time. And now I'm dealing with a significantly more amount of financial loss. And so I'm, even though I dealt with that amount, which was a lot to me and still is a lot, 20,000, but dealing with now 100,000 or around that is even harder to comprehend. And it's a daily struggle, and I'll get to that. But what I'm learning and learning how to deal with that has been helping a lot. And I think that no matter what you do in life, if you're trying to invest or build wealth, at some point in time you have to level up, and you'll have to take more risks to get greater wealth if you want. And to do that, that risk comes with that vulnerability of losing your money. And the amounts get greater the more risk and the more you level up. And so, having said that, when I dealt with that $20,000 loss, I was in an okay position to handle that. And I was also learning that, hey, look, in life you're gonna lose some money, and it's okay. If you look at a lot of successful people, a lot of successful entrepreneurs that have gone on to build great companies, a lot of them have had to deal with failure, whether it's bankruptcy or financial loss. And look, I'm nowhere near an entrepreneur or at that level, but if you read their biographies, you'll see that they had gone through a lot of losses themselves. And so I'm looking at that and how does that apply to my life? And really everybody at some point in time goes through some sort of financial loss. It's just at what level and what amount, and what does that amount represent in terms of your life? So I lost that $20,000, and I realized, hey, look, in life I'm going to lose. But with this particular incident with this property, I was not expecting it to go this low, and so this has really been tough. And the other point here is I'm having a hard time seeing a way out. So that's keeping me up at night sometimes. So basically what happened was I invested in a property in Detroit in 2019, and it was a duplex, so it has 2 units, and based on the cash flows and everything, it was going to be about a 15% return, and I was going to be making some great money off the property every year. However, the property wasn't in the greatest area of Detroit, and it wasn't in the greatest condition. So I said, hey, there are renters in here, there are tenants in here, and over time I'd like to renovate the property, at least make it a nicer place to live, and up its value as well. So I'm not going to go into the warning signs and looking back now, what I should have been aware of, and what should have flagged me that this was a bad deal to get in, or I should have been more cautious. I may leave that for another video. Right now I just want to talk about the specific of the amount that I'm losing and how to handle that, and how I'm handling it and trying to handle it. It's still something that is bothering me, but I am getting over it with each and every passing day. So with the tools and things that I'm learning, so everything pretty much went well. There were some signs that started to come up where the property manager that I have down there started to charge me, or I started to get charges a few months in a row, and they were pretty hefty charges for maintenance and repairs. So I called them and I started to ask them, what are these charges for? can I get some invoices? Can I see some photos? And they would explain what they're for. But they said, oh yeah, we'll try and get you photos, or, we'll get you an invoice. And I just never seemed to be able to get it out of them. And it was, every time I called, it was basically, okay, yeah, we'll get to it. Now get off the phone. Kind of like that vibe, get off the phone. So it was like pulling teeth to get information from them. And then, so that was one sign right there. So that started to drain my account a little bit, but I was okay because I was like, oh, maintenance, repairs, I deal with that all the time. They have a markup on there, whatever. I'm still getting enough income from the property to cover it. So I'm okay. No big deal. I'll weather that out. But as the months went on, the charges started coming in for different things, and I was just writing it out because the rent was covering everything. And then what happened was later in the year, one of the tenants stopped paying rent. And so I spoke to the property manager. They said they're trying to collect the rent. And that's another thing. They didn't start the eviction process right there, which they probably should have, or they should have sent out a notice. However, they didn't do that. And I was okay with that too. Try and work with the tenant. I'm not familiar with that area. And, if they're more experienced in that area, which I thought they were, now knowing, being with them for 2 years, I know they weren't experienced property managers. They didn't do that. So that happened, and that dragged on for a couple months before, they tried to start that eviction process. And during that process, within a couple more months, the other tenant stopped paying rent. So now I had no rent coming in, and it was near the end of the year. And that's when 2020 happened. And a few months later, COVID hit, and that's when no evictions were allowed to proceed. So basically now, the tenants were living in there with no signs of moving out or working with me or working with the property management company to pay rent or, to leave. However, they were also not maintaining the property. So they weren't cutting the grass. They were leaving garbage all over the place. And what was happening was the city was, inspecting that neighborhood to make sure it stays clean. And I got fines for lawn cutting and garbage removal. And I didn't even know about it because my property manager wasn't getting the notifications and they weren't overseeing the property. So those turned out to be thousands of dollars in fines that I had to pay. On top of this, the city raised the taxes, doubled it on me. So I didn't factor that cost into my calculation because I wasn't expecting the property taxes to be doubled. And the reason why they did that was they said that once the property is sold and transferred possession, they bring the taxes up to where it should be. And since the property wasn't sold in the last 5 to 10 years, there was a lot of room for that, or they had to catch up with the rate it's at right now. So I got hit with a double tax for property taxes. So right there and then, I pretty much, my bank account went to zero. I was not negative. However, we were able, throughout the year of 2020, we were able to get one of the tenants out. And just through natural wear and tear and damage, the property needed to be renovated so that I could advertise it and market to another tenant. That cost me another $10,000. So my bank account drained from $10,000 and then it went up by $10,000. And now I'm at the point where I've funded it another $20K roughly just to hang on and get by until I can get the tenants evicted. On top of that, I'm at the point now where I don't want to spend any more money on this property. So I have to sell it in the condition that it's in. And I'm probably going to lose about $60K compared to what I sold it for or what I bought it for. So I'm going to lose $60K on top of the $40K that I've already dumped in. And that's roughly, that's where I get my $100,000 loss. I'm hoping the 60 it's not going to be that bad, but that's what I'm budgeting and that's what I'm estimating. And that's a tough one for me because you don't want to lose that, especially when you're going to invest in a property. You don't expect to lose that amount of money. But one of the things I'm learning is that, like I said, when you up level and you take more risk, and you're trying to build wealth, you're going to be vulnerable or at risk of losing different levels or different amounts of money. And this is just what happened to me. And you have to learn to understand that the world is operating on its own vibration. You might have a plan, but the world, the universe has its own plan. And so no matter what I did, there was no real way for me to escape losing money on this property. And now I'm looking back and just trying to learn the lesson. And one of the things that are helping me, or that is helping me to move forward, is this book that I read. It's called The Handbook to Higher Consciousness by Ken Keyes Jr. It's more of a spiritual book, but it really talks about how to think at a higher level, and it helps me to understand that the way I want things to go is really my addictive pattern, and that's what the outcome I want. And when that outcome doesn't happen because I want it so badly, I'm susceptible to getting emotional, upset, angry, depressed, have anxiety because it's not going my way. When the world operates on its own way pretty much all the time, and so instead of having this addictive thought of this is what I want to have, this is what I have to have, it talks about changing that addictive thought to a more preference thought. Like, this is what I prefer to happen. However, I also know that that might not happen, and there's a probability that it won't. So if it doesn't, I have to be okay with the fact that that is how it turned out. And whatever that turned out to be was really what was best for me in terms of a learning opportunity, in terms of me growing in my consciousness and me being here on earth. The other thing is, it also talks about living in the here and now. Every problem that you've had and you faced, you've been able to go through, and you are here today. So you have to realize that if you're stressing or you're feeling fear and anxiety, it's because you're thinking about a future consequence that has not happened yet. And if you actually just think about the here and now, you are living. You're probably in a secure place. Well, I am. I have food. I have more than everything I need around me to survive. So instead of me focusing on the future and what's going wrong, it's better for me to live in the now. Be aware of what's happening, but live in the now, and that enables me to deal with the situation in the here and now better than if I think about what's going to happen that hasn't already happened yet. And so my goal right now is to just be here, and then also recognize that whatever happened there was a loss. It's not my preferred outcome, obviously, and I just have to keep moving forward. Now, when I get really upset over that because that's a lot of money, but then I also had to take a step back and look over the whole year last year, and based on all my investments, I was still up. So at the end of the day, I really can't complain, because probably last year was really the best year ever for me in terms of my wealth overall. But no matter what, this still hurts because I wasn't expecting this, and I didn't want this to happen, and this is a big hit. So I'm just trying to get comfortable with loss and living in the here and now. And I think that's a big thing, because if you want to start investing, or if you have money out in the world working for you, whether it's in an investment or in a business, it's there and it's at risk of disappearing or being taken away from you. And that reality might happen, and it's easy to say that, oh yeah, I can deal with it, but when it's a big amount or a big portion compared within your life, it's hard to actually realize how it will affect you. And so I just really want to share with you guys, and I'm hoping that it helps somebody that going through some sort of financial loss, that it's bound to happen to everybody, and you're not the only one, and you will survive through it. And it's just a matter of living in the here and now, and recognizing that no matter what, that if that was what you wanted to happen, obviously that's not the outcome that you wanted to happen, but it's what the universe wanted to happen. And your best way to handle that is to deal with it in a way of, okay, how do I learn from this and let it go, and move on, and so that this doesn't happen potentially in the future again. But let it go and just move on from there. It's hard to say because it's a big amount of money. Nobody wants to lose that. But there was another book I read, and it talked about the fear of money and losing money being similar to a flesh wound. You get a cut, it stings, it hurts for a while, but eventually it heals and it goes away. And that's going to be the same thing for any financial loss. And that's what I learned from the last loss I had. And I have a feeling that this is the same thing that I'm going to learn with this loss. It's just a bigger amount, and it represents a bigger portion of my wealth. And so I'm just learning to deal with that right now, and I wanted to share that, and I hope that helps anybody else watching this video. Having said that, if you do like the video or you thought it was helpful, please hit a like button. Because it does help me to get more of my videos out, even though I don't post that often. But I'm trying to build a habit of posting more on a regular basis. And if you do like the video, subscribe. And I just want to say, keep loving, keep learning, keep living, and keep living happy. Thanks for watching. Take care, guys.